Hi, so I'm making a video for a short recap on functions in Python. I would always like to introduce function in Python like something like a tool in a toolbox, right? So in a toolbox you have a lot of different tools like screwdrivers, you have wrenches, hammers, drills, all that. They are all made for very specific purposes and they can be reused multiple times. The key point here is that they only made once. They are made only once, but they are used for hundreds or even thousands of times. That is similar to a function in Python. A function in Python is something that you only need to make once, and you can use it all over again multiple times throughout your program, right? Countless times. There's no limit. So why is reusability so important? Because in our code, we don't want to repeat something we already did. The purpose of programming is already just to automate things and to make things more efficient. So as programmers, we also should try to keep it efficient for us to write code. So we don't want to write something multiple times. We only want to write something once and use it multiple times. That is why we want to use functions. Let's start by writing a function then. Recall that to define a function, we start with the keyword def, and we start with the function name. Let's say this function is something very generic, like say hello to, and then to end with the function name, you use a pair of parentheses. Between these pair of parentheses, you can put some parameters. You don't need to, but usually there would be something there. I would just say name, and I would add age as well. Somehow, when you say hello to this guy, we need to know his age. To end this line, you need to write a colon sign, the two dots, colon sign. So here you can see that this is the function header. We have the keyword def, the function name hello. Between the parentheses, we have the input parameters. So the input parameters are just the values that we are going to be using inside the function. The naming here is not very important. Some of you mistakes it for this to refer to something from outside of the function, but that is not the case, and I will talk about it a little bit later on. Okay, so here in this function, what I want to do is, first I want to create a string called hello string. This string first just say hello to hello, just that. And I want this string to also include the name, right? Include the name of the person. Let's return the string right now and see what we get. First, I'll just make a character. My character name is Bob, and his age is 32. Now I just call say hello to name and age. So what do you think will be the output here? Would it be hello Bob? Let's just try and run it and see. you can see that nothing happens. Why did nothing happen? Because we return a hello string, which should be hello Bob, I'm pretty sure. But after we return it, where does it go? Where does it go? What did we do to the string that we returned? Right? We didn't do anything to the string that we returned. Remember in Python that when you need to show something to the user, you need to print it. That is why here I would just create a variable called hello string, and we have to print that hello string. Now you can see that when I add Bob, the name Bob, into this function call, this is a function call. When you use a function, it's called a function call. So when you call a function, it passes in the value as an argument. The argument corresponds to the value of the parameter, right? Here name is Bob, this turns into Bob. Hello string is hello string plus Bob. It then returns hello Bob. Hello Bob gets returned to this value here, to this variable here, and it gets printed. So when a function returns a value, the function call gets evaluated to that return value. So this part is equivalent to hello Bob. So from before, we call this function like this. After the function runs, it becomes something similar to this, right? So our function call turns into the value of hello string due to the return statement. So this is where you need to really understand return statement, because it's very important for recursion later on. Okay, right now we are only using name. What about age? So I also want to add something about it is age. Who is plus age plus years old. Okay, recall that because age is an integer, we cannot add an integer to a string. That is why I need to change this to string, and when we run this code again, you get hello Bob, who is 32 years old. That's great. So our program works the way we intended. Now I want to show where some of you might get mistaken on how naming works in functions. Most of you get mistaken that when we define a parameter name here in our function definition, it has to be the same name. It has to have the same name as something that we want to use from outside of the function, which is totally not the case. Because when I change this outside variable name here to something else like my customer and my age, my customer age, and I pass it to the function, I realize I misspelled customer. So now you can see that even though in the function definition I'm using name and age, here I'm also using name and age to create hello string, but I'm passing into my function something called my customer and my customer age, which is completely different. But when I run this function, it still works the same way. It shows that there is no relationship between this variable name and this variable name. The only relationship is the position, right? When you call the function, you put the name first and h second. What if I do it in the wrong order? You see that I immediately get an error, but let's just say that I add string here. You can see that when I switch them around, even though in my function I have defined name comes before h, that is what we expect the function to do. But when we call the function, we accidentally pass h first and name second. So the function actually thinks h is the name and the name is the age. That is why it printed 32 was Bob years old. So this further proves that naming variables inside the function, which we call local variables, is not correlated to any variable names from outside of the function. So this is where you have to be very careful of. The same goes for returning. Here, you are returning hello string. Some of you think that to be able to use this value from outside the function, this also needs to be hello string. But that does not need to be the case. I could just say this is my output text, and it will still work the same way. When I run this code, it still works the same way, because when you return hello string here, all that matters is the content inside hello string and not the variable name hello string itself. So this is where you have to be careful. Global variables and local variables and function parameters, these are all the things that you need to be very careful of for next sections. Okay, so that's it for functions. On recap, please, if you have any questions still on function, please let me know so we can answer your questions in time so you can move on to later topics.